welcome everyone to my traditional monthly live Q&A. Today we're going to be talking about a very exciting topic for me, which is the detoxification and biotransformation. That's the term I want you to learn at the end of this presentation. But why are we feeling sluggish, weak, and irritable? And how sometimes it could be because of the toxic burden that we're exposed to in our environment, in our work, in our homes, in our just breathing the air, and how's our body dealing with it, and how we can assist our body to dealing with it so it doesn't become a chronic issue. So during this presentation, we're going to talk about what is the toxic burden. It's the term that we widely use in functional medicine. Probably you won't hear it in your primary care doctor's office, but here we operate with these terms and what could be the symptoms of the toxic burden. We're going to talk about how we can support our body through the detoxification capacity. What are the treatment options that we have in functional medicine as well as in conventional medicine? And we'll talk about application of the detoxification in the general GI health program. So what are the toxins? The toxins, as you know, are everywhere. They're ubiquitous. They are unavoidable today. So the question is when we're exposed to the toxin, but how we exposed to the toxin. We all are pretty much exposed. And the toxins are those chemicals and man-made substances, could be, that are in the air, that we acquire in the water, in the food supply. For all of us here in New York, this summer we were burdened with additional toxic burden of their fires, the wildfires from Canada. It's interesting that Canada didn't really suffer much, but everything came to New York. And some of you remember that doomed Monday afternoon when the sky turned yellow and the air pollution became so horrific that it was even impossible to walk outside. So yes, it's our environment. You know, we also have a lot of plastics, a lot of beauty products that are toxic, a lot of artificial perfumes that are adding to our toxic load. Some medications, you know, that actually the average 23-year-old now takes at least 1 or 2 chronic pharmaceutical medications. It is a toxicity. It is many of them, even though they do something in the body positive, they are adding to that toxic burden. So food additives, pesticides, if we eat conventionally grown vegetables and fruit, we're exposed to pesticides that have a dramatic effect on our microbiome and the bacteria in our gut, as well as on the toxic burden. Preservatives in the food. So there are also toxins that impact and accumulate in our body over time. So we are exposed to toxin from utero, right? From our mother's womb, or our children actually exposed to much more toxic burden than we were because of their toxins in the air and in our environment. And all of that increases our toxic burden. So this toxic burden is a cumulative term. What are we exposed to in our lives? What do we put in our skin? What do we drink? What do we eat? What do we inhale? And what we do not eliminate? Whatever we do not eliminate after all that multiple routes of exposure stays in our body, and that creates our toxic burden. So that's a good way I like to think about it. So whatever we don't eliminate, don't excrete, we accumulate. So where's the toxins coming from? So they're coming actually from different places. As you can see on this picture, this is very much reminds their landscape of their New York sometimes. So environmental toxin, of course, there's a pollution, the auto exhaust, the solvents and the paint and cleaning product that sometimes we use in the house, heavy metals that come from our food, pesticides, herbicides, insecticides that we sometimes put on our skin to prevent tick bites or mosquito bites, radiation and inhalants. So all of those are causing our environmental toxic exposure, but there's also lifestyle exposure to toxins. lifestyle. This is the dietary choices that we make. If you can see in this picture of their cereal that looks so inviting with all these bright colors, our children probably love it. But all those artificial coloring, E132, the red number 40 or the blue number 41 or yellow number 60, all of those chemicals end up in our body without food. So the dietary choices matter very much. Do we eat fast food? Do we eat fried food? Are we exposed to the trans fats, all those man-made fats that are sitting in our body and not being eliminated? Cosmetics, nicotine, alcohol, some of the caffeinated drinks that will expose us to additional toxic burden, prescription medication, over-the-counter medication, artificial food additives, coloring and preservatives, and finally refined food and sugars can also add to this problem. Interestingly enough, I just came across this article about the microplastics in our body. We always thought the plastics don't really being absorbed so much and they stay in the gut level. But in fact, this is the study from Beijing when they did during their 15 patients were investigated during the surgery, the cardiac surgery, and they took the blood sample as well as their part of their heart tissue. And what they found that majority patients, majority heart samples had microplastics infiltration. So we are exposed to plastics so much in such a huge quantity that some research shows that we're eating about a credit card size of plastic every week, all of us. That includes our children. Luckily, majority of that plastics is not really being absorbed, but some of it obviously is based on this study. So in these studies, they found that a lot of their common plastics like PET that is used in the clear bottles, or polyvinyl chloride, PVC, that can be found in the pipes and plastic structures in our life and single-use medical devices. The polymethyl methacrylate that is called PMMC. So all these different particles, actually, this is a plexiglass. How does a plexiglass end up in our blood, in our tissue, organ tissue? So this is actually a very interesting new article just appeared. So talking about environmental exposure, please get yourself a good quality air purifier. We offering it at the discounted price to our patients. Call the office, order it. But I just got 2 of those for my office, especially because we know we're going to be exposed to more and more of their air pollution. Even if the windows are closed, even if we're running air conditioning. So some toxins actually coming also from the internal toxins. This is what our body generates through the process of living and metabolizing certain substances. So we have a lot of internal toxins from their microbes that live and habitate in our gut and in our body in general. All those bugs, bacterial, yeast, and fungal microbes, or maybe for some people even mold, will be, pooping and producing some metabolite. We need to detox them from our body. Then there's a byproducts of metabolic reaction in our body. So carbon dioxide and ammonia also needs to be removed. And if we don't detoxify them fast, we get this headache and brain fog and a lot of other symptoms. Undigested food can also present internal toxic element. Stress, believe it or not, creates a huge burden on a toxic load, because when we're stressed, we produce a lot of neurotransmitters and mediators that are stress related. Those need to be chopped off and removed from the body. All of that takes away the body's capacity to detoxify toxins from our environment. Unresolved trauma and abuse creates the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Every time we think about the event, we create this cascade of stress reactions in the body. We produce the tons of the stress metabolites and neurotransmitters like adrenaline and noradrenaline. All of that body needs to be processing and removing. And unhappy relationship, toxic relationship, all of those are the sources of the toxic exposure in our body, internal toxins. So this is actually a data from CDC, and they say that Americans of all ages are carrying more than 219 toxic compounds in their bodies at any given time. So believe it or not, we definitely need to detoxify. Sorry about my computer misbehaving a little bit. All right, so what are the symptoms of toxic burden? First of all, probably the most common is the fatigue and malaise, feeling run down, feeling that the truck hit us. We wake up in the morning, we should be refreshed, but in fact, we feeling more tired than before we went to bed. This is the symptoms of toxic burden, internal, external, or through our lifestyle. Irritability and difficulty concentrating, this epidemic of ADHD and ADD that we have in the younger population, but also in adults. I think this is all product of our toxic burden. Occasional muscle aches and pains, trouble losing weight, that's a big one, right? We live in their pandemic of obesity, not just in America, but everywhere in the world. I think the toxic burden plays a huge role in that. Skin complaints, the acne, eczema, psoriasis, autoimmune disorders that affecting our skin could be very well symptoms of toxic burden. Of course, if we are vain and we don't want to look older than we are, puffy, dark circles under the eyes, but not even in the older individual or middle-aged individual. Our children get those allergic hues under the eyes, those dark shadows. This can be a sign of toxic burden. And of course, a lot of different gastrointestinal symptoms. So how can detoxification help? Detoxification actually relieves toxic burden from the body. It restores the natural cleansing process. It enhances and removes foreign chemical substances and unhealthy hormone metabolites, like the stress hormones. It cleans your filters and optimizes performance of your detoxification organs and improves metabolism of the body, helps us to lose weight, helps us to maintain a healthy weight and feel better overall, feel more energy. And it helps to unmask other gastrointestinal issues. Talking about losing weight loss. You know, many of us tried a lot of different diets to lose weight. And fat is actually protective in our body. It protects our body from toxins and impurities. Because majority of the chemical substances that we expose, majority of the toxins that we expose to are fat soluble, meaning our body cannot excrete them easily. So it has to go through the transformation of biotransformation. So if body cannot biotransform the chemical and excrete it quickly, it will hide it into the fat tissue. And that's why more toxins we get, more weight we gain. Dieting along with just cutting the calories or exercising a lot, that will cause the fat loss, but will increase the excretion and exposure of our body to the toxins. As a result, we get this rebound effect. As the toxin come out from the fat cells that are being depleted through the dieting, we expose ourselves to toxins and triggers the body needs to create more fat so we can bury those toxins back in the fat. So it creates this vicious cycle, right? We lose weight and then we gain even more because we didn't really facilitate the process of removing those toxic chemicals that are buried in the fat tissue. The true detoxification happens when we remove the toxins first and creates the channels and pathways for the body to get rid of the chemicals while creating the lean muscle mass, and then release their excess of the fat. So that will give us a much more sustainable effect with the weight loss. And maintaining a clean and balanced diet keeps the body natural, lean, and reduce lean muscle mass, increase the lean muscle mass, and reduce the toxic burden. So not just fasting and reducing the calorie intake and not supporting detoxification, but really removing the toxins first and then losing the fat. So liver is one of the major organs of detoxification. It's actually one of the biggest organs too. It's a really unique organ in our body that filters a lot of blood throughout the day, 24/7, and removes the toxins from the blood. It also stores the glucose for energy. That's why if liver is burdened with the toxins, we get the glucose dysregulation. It also breaks down our internal product of metabolism, like hormones, and produces and excretes the bile that is the main source of their toxins being removed from the body. So liver filters the blood, removes the toxins from the blood, then dumps it into the bile that is draining into our gastrointestinal tract. And then from the gastrointestinal tract, it's supposed to be removed with our feces and bowel movements. So this is what liver does. Liver is the biggest helper in the process of detoxification. But how does liver do it? So a lot of our toxins, as you know, are fat soluble, and they need to be going through their biotransformation. That's the process of converting fat soluble toxins into the water soluble toxins. It's a very intense process that goes through the two phases. Phase one, when we take the fat soluble toxin, activate them, and phase two, when we conjugate them and they are ready to be excreted with the bile into their GI tract. When these are not working efficiently, when the phase one and phase two are not working efficiently, fat soluble toxins pass through the liver and are not being removed. And very often, body's defense mechanism is to hide those toxins into the fat tissue or fat organs. Number one fat organ that we have is our brain. So now you can think about this epidemic of middle-aged women and men going through the brain fog and cognitive problems and the rampant escalation of the dementia and Alzheimer's disease in our country. It's not only because we live longer. It's not only because we help people not to die from strokes and heart attacks early in life, but it's also because our brain is actually one of the biggest organs to store the toxins, especially toxic metals. So in this diagram actually shows you really well what we just discussed, toxins that are usually fat soluble. And here's a toxic list of the metabolic end products, microorganisms, contaminants, pollutants, insecticides, pesticides, food additives, drugs, and even alcohol have to go through this phase one and phase two detoxification in order to be excreted. So this is the process of moving the toxin from fat soluble to water soluble, as you can see on this diagram, from fat soluble all the way to the water soluble, when it can be eliminated through the gallbladder, bile to the bowel, or through the kidney into the urine. So this phase one detoxification process requires a lot of nutrients. It's a really nutrient dependent process, and because many of us are nutrient deficient, this process doesn't run very smoothly. We need tons of B vitamins. We need folic acid. We need fat soluble vitamins like vitamin A and vitamin D. We need antioxidants like vitamin C, vitamin E. but also some herbs like milk thistles that have a protective effect, calcium, and finally glutathione, my favorite glutathione that is so versatile and helps us to detoxify phase 1 and phase 2. So in the process of a chemical or toxin going through this phase 1 detoxification, it creates this intermediary metabolites that are very, very toxic for our body. And that's why the phase 1 and phase 2 should work congruently with each other. Phase 2 also requires nutrients. It requires amino acids. That's why it's so important to eat plenty of proteins. And hopefully we break down those proteins to amino acids, because without amino acids, we cannot conjugate or transform this phase 1 byproducts into phase 2, take them through the phase 2, and finally make those chemicals or toxins into the water soluble. So protein, amino acids are essential in this process. Those are the 4 very important amino acids: glycine, taurine, glutamine, glutamine, and cysteine. All of those we actually can test in the micronutrients, a body test that we do in our office, when we're looking at those amino acids not only in the blood, where they're always going to be within normal limits, but also inside of the cell, in the storage compartments of our body. But also we need a lot of other nutrients to facilitate this phase 2 detoxification. So this is probably one of the most important diagrams that I want you to take from this lecture, that we need tons of nutrients in order to detoxify. And some of us, I actually don't have enough nutrients or enough nutrients to meet their demand of the toxic burden. And that's why we'd usually prescribe a lot of nutrients and vitamins, sometimes in the form of protein shakes, sometimes in the form of the IV therapy, especially for people who have acute exposure to the toxins. And that's when people notice a huge difference. So there's many different detoxification programs, and you have to choose detoxification program that applies to you. The goal of the detox program is really to vitalize your body's natural detoxification ability, both their GI tract and the liver. So there's many different cleanse programs, as they call it. Even if you take magnesium citrate and just purge your bowels, it's also detoxification, but it really doesn't help your liver. So the good detoxification program will include support of phase 1, phase 2 processes, also teaches you how to reduce the toxic body burden that are incoming into your body. How do you practice avoidance? And that's so important, because our body is doing an absolutely amazing job 24/7 helping us to get rid of those toxins, but we need to start reduce the exposure to the toxins. So evaluating your environment, looking at your household, looking at your working place, looking what you're eating every day will help you to avoid additional toxic burden. And then good detoxification program, of course, looks at the liver's natural ability to process and remove the toxins, including those that are stored in the tissue. So we're talking about not just immediate, what comes today goes out today, but also what did we store in our fat, in our bones, in our brain. And the phase 3 of detoxification is really eliminating it from the body, eliminating it, binding it in the gut, and removing toxins from the gut. So the comprehensive detoxification program includes all those steps. And the process of it is really essential to support detoxification capacity. You absolutely need micronutrients, phytonutrients, and clean protein. That's why people ask me, can I live without the protein powders? I said, yeah, of course you can. But you need to make sure your meat is clean, your fish is clean, which is not the case in the majority of the cases, or you have tons of proteins from your vegetable sources, which is also not always optimal, and assuring that your digestive system can break it down into the small particle, absorb it, right? So all of that is absolutely necessary for efficient process of detoxification. It's so much easier to take protein powders and with the pre-digested amino acids, with the nutrients that are already on board, and utilize it in your daily life. But it's absolutely essential for detoxification program. We also provide in our detox program, we provide step-by-step daily instruction. How do you do fasting? How do you eat your meals? The meal planning is essential because you need to eat proteins. You need to eat meal, but you need to do it in a special format. Shopping guide, all of that will be provided in our detoxification program. Journal, how you feel after exposure to your work environment, to your home environment, to your relationship, and elimination of toxins that are consumed on a regular basis. So you already seen this 5R approach that includes removal, replacement, reinoculation of the gut, and repair of the gastrointestinal barriers, and rebalancing of the microbiome flora. Detoxification process is really essential in that initial step of removal, eliminating exposure to toxin through your environment, eliminating the triggers that can be causing their gut imbalances, and improving detoxification. And that's outlined on this first diagram here, that intimate gut-liver connection. So let's look at their typical toxicity case in the functional medicine or in our daily life. Usually it's a middle-aged individual, though I see younger and younger individual presenting to my practice with their symptoms of toxicity. Usually people with a sedentary lifestyle and poor diet. They always feel tired or irritable with the habits of being forgetful. Again, that cognitive impairment that many of us experience as a result of the toxic burden. They might complain on the itchy skin and irregular bowel movements. Here you go. You have these symptoms. Itchy skin is usually a symptom of a liver burden, right? Or liver detoxification impairment, and irregular bowel habits. So they are not eliminating toxins through their bowel movements, which is our major detoxification organ. So you take this case, this presentation, patient is feeling weak, sluggish, experience brain fog, occasional itchy skin, maybe history of hives or some rashes, some constipation, poor daily diet habit with lots of processed food, low in fiber, lots of preservatives in the food, or eating the food that is non-organic, that is treated with tons of pesticides and herbicides, or not eating fiber at all, and long-term medication use. This is, believe it or not, 80% of the population in this country. And in addition to that, the person can be exposed to chemicals at their workplace. Tons of those, right? So this patient comes to the primary care physician who runs extensive tests, does imaging and colonoscopy, and does biopsies, maybe, and doesn't find anything, prescribe maybe some medication saying it's all in your head, so let's treat you for the depression. Here's a Prozac, and here's the medication that will help you to calm down and sleep at night and maybe relieve that itchiness in the skin. And by the way, if you're constipated, we know it's bad, so here's the Miralax. Here's a ethylene glycol, which is the chemical that presumably not absorbable, but take it so you can move your bowels. And of course, patients understand they still have that internal wisdom, and they're looking for alternative. This is how they come to us, and they find a functional medicine doctor to understand what is the root cause of this itchiness. What is the root cause of feeling so fatigued and malaise and gaining weight? So what do we do differently? How do we do it differently? Well, we take a very detailed medical history. It takes about 2 hours for us to go through the initial visit. And then we do a very important workup. We do the stool test to evaluate the internal toxins. We do conventional blood test as well, but then we also looking at their other measurements. For example, we're doing the toxic metal test. You're looking at the urine, how much toxic metal your body is excreting on a daily basis. Or with provocation, we're looking at the organic acid test, looking at, do you have a lot of byproducts of their toxins in your body? We can also look at their toxins present in your body, which is sometimes can be very helpful to see if you have an ongoing exposure to specific chemicals. We also can look at the mycotoxins, the byproducts of the mold that is becoming more and more prevalent. And people might become more aware of toxic mold exposure and how it can add to the toxic burden and impair our energy production and the brain function. So as a result, we usually prescribe a comprehensive detoxification program. Remember, we talked about phase 1 and phase 2, how nutrient dense and dependent it is, how much micronutrients you need, phytonutrients, amino acids that are helping us to conjugate or support that phase 2. We talk about large dose of antioxidants. Sometimes we offer people IV therapy. We support elimination process with their extra amount of fibers, as well as bile support. We call it choleretic, or substances that help us to drain the bile from the liver into the gastrointestinal tract, where we use the binders to bind the toxins, eliminate them from the gastrointestinal tract. We also evaluate people's lifestyle and pointing into the area where they might have those red flags that can increase their body burden of the toxins. We also look at what is their genetics. We're now looking at the patient's detoxification pathways. Are they 100% normal, or are they impaired? And if they're impaired, what can we do to support those detoxification pathways? So this is actually a great 6 days detox micro kit. It's only 6 days. It's a great way for those who are naive or new to the detoxification process to kind of tip your toe into the water and see what is the detoxification. Everybody can commit to 6 days of detox. It has a great amino acid support with their Opti Cleanse GHI supplement. It has a great drainage remedy, which is the liquid the drops that you add to your water on a daily basis. It has a probiotic to improve the microbiome in the gut, and the colon X that helps you to move the bowels with the bile that is full of toxins. If you decide to do this process, you can actually order it on our website or on e-store at shop@drelenaKlimenko.com and get a 10% off since you are attending this lecture. And then for those of you who are not new to the detox process and ready to commit a whole month of cleansing, which is great to do actually in January. We usually promote it in January and create a detoxification group. Please join us. And this is the process of detoxification when you start with eating less and replacing some of your meals with the protein shakes. And you do that gradually increasing the number of protein shake until from day 12 to day 14, you actually do only shakes. So it's modified fast, but you provide multiple nutrients to support phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of detoxification. So if you're ever interested in this 28 days cleanse, talk to us and we can help you to go through this challenge. And now we have an open IV room for those of you who are my patients. Thank you for joining us today. But we actually, as you probably know, opened the new IV room. For those of you who haven't tried IV therapy yet, we are running special of $159, which is basically half off from the regular price. So call us, make an appointment, or just stop by, see our beautiful new IV suite. So what are the pillars of detoxification health programs? Definitely, for those of you who are my patients, you know about medical symptoms questionnaire. It actually shows your toxicity level. If your score is more than 50, you certainly have a lot of toxic burden, and you should go through the detoxification process maybe every 3 to 6 months. We also test our patients for their genetic predisposition of being toxically burdened with their exposure. So some of us have problem with the detoxification pathways. So we look into it and we teach our patients what exactly they need to do to help the body and liver to detoxify. We talk about supplements and lifestyle intervention. We definitely like to do a follow-up and see how the detoxification program helps you to feel better. If not, we do additional testing and looking at the internal toxins that can be coming from microbial burden, from gastrointestinal tract microbes that are creating too many endotoxins. And we definitely teach our patients how to, an understanding of what is involved in their detoxification process. We also offer group visits if individual health coaching sessions are too expensive. So this is the great test that we offer to our patients, 3x4 genetic test that looks at their vulnerable pathways, and we run supportive group every week. So the test and the group's attendance is $350 only, and you get a lifetime or unlimited attendance to monthly groups when you do this test with us. And this is my new favorite product. It's called Dr. Elena Detox Pearls. This is a really comprehensive, truly dual phase optimizer. It really helps you to push the toxins from phase 1 and catch the toxins as they going through that phase 1 and phase 2. It facilitates the phase 2 detoxification. If you are interested to learn more about it, visit our shop and get this amazing product that I use for myself, because I'm actually very much impaired in my detoxification pathway based on the test 3x4. And I take this product on a daily basis to support my detox process, or sometimes even more than once a day if I'm exposed to toxins through their airplane flight, or I do my hair coloring, or I know I am in the car for more than 2 hours and I'm exposed to the fumes on the streets. So really a great product to keep in your shelf and take as needed for their occasional toxin exposure. So take the next step. Schedule, if you're a new patient to our practice or you're contemplating to become a client, call us and get the free discovery call with us. Sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on Instagram. We usually post all the news of our practice there. And I'll be happy to open the floor to the questions and answers. Meanwhile, here's our telephone number. Here's our email if you have any questions.